It's me, Shimagami X. What I have for you today is another Bleach chapter review. This Bleach chapter is titled 534, titled Everything But the Rain, opening 7. Alright, so let's get into the chapter straight away. The way the chapter starts out is we're back into the Soul Society with Rangiku and, back in Soul Society scenario. She basically comes dancing along with loads of paperwork for her captain to do. Basically, she's bunking off on her work again. Well, looking to bunk off on her work again. So, she can pass on to her captain, just go about shopping and have a good time. Alright, then, but to her surprise, what she sees is that she sees a note from her captain saying that, okay, I've gone to the world of living and, make up an excuse for the captain commander for when I come back. Alright, so she's like, oh, how can he go at a time like this? Like, does he think that, just because the captain commander let him off once, he can go whenever he wants? Like, he doesn't take his job seriously. Then Toshiro get past the cheeky comment and is like, that's coming from you, essentially. Like, you're saying this. But yeah, that was not really anything. Then she continues to, be infuriated by it. And, continues to, have a little, go off in a little wild run with Toshiro about it. Like, oh, no, he doesn't take his job seriously. Like, what does he think he is? Etc. So now, we cut back to the world of living inside the Ishida household. Alright, then what happens here is we see Masaki, standing in what seems to be the main entrance and the main hall, as soon as you come in through the doors. And then Ryuken's mother approaches her and is like, oh, okay, why, where have you been, what have you been up to? And then she tries to brush it off oh, nothing and whatnot, and she's like, oh, then Ryuken's mother was like, oh, I know what you've been doing. You've been out fighting hollows, and you shouldn't be doing that. You got involved in a fight with a Shimigami and basically broke all the rules of the Quincy rule. She broke all the rules. So she was very pissed about that. So now we move on. We skip to the next panel, and then what we see Ryuken. He's obviously overhearing the conversation. He's listening intently. He's listening now. So to find out what's going on, because obviously he cares about Masaki. So then, listening to the conversation, something's ticked in his mind, and he's like, okay, there's only one person that could have, given his mother this information that, she'd been out fighting hollows, that she was attacked and whatnot. So he rushes to find Katagiri. He finds Katagiri, grabs her, pins up against the wall, screams in her face, and why did you, say that to, why did you tell my mother that, we was out for that, Masaki was out fighting hollows, nothing happened. Why did you tell her anything happened? It's like, oh, but something did happen. She was attacked, she was bitten by the hollow. And you said it yourself that the only reason that she's here in the Yoshida household is simply because, to preserve the Quincy bloodline. And obviously, if she gets bitten by a hollow, that bloodline may be tainted. So she looks at it as she didn't do anything wrong. She's just doing her job. So Ryuken, you can see he's still pissed at her, but he has to kind of, he has to, allow her this once. He has to, because she isn't in the wrong. So Ryuken runs off, to get involved in the conversation between Masaki and his mother. And then basically what we see next is that his mother's still talking to Masaki, and then all of a sudden Masaki collapses, face flat down on the floor, pow, out. So then what happens is Ryuken naturally runs, grabs her, that sees that, to make sure she's okay. She's passed out, she's gone. And then you can see a hollow hole in her chest, in a very similar place to where Ukiura had his one. Just, little side note, not important. But yeah, you see a hole there, and you see veins surrounding it and whatnot. And yeah, so obviously naturally looks like she's been infected, looks like she's becoming a hollow, or looks like she received a very deep wound. So naturally Ryuken, grabs her and he rushes off with her now. And so his mother tries to stop him, but, inevitably fails. Basically, come back here and, just try to stop him, just, naturally. But it doesn't work. He rushes out the Ishida household with carrying her, physically carrying her. And then, as he dashes out, a hollow attempts to attack him and Masaki. And then, out of nowhere, you see Ishin Shiba jump out, slash the hollow's mask in half, and yeah. And that was the end of that hollow. Then Ryuken thanks Ishin, and then Ishin's like, oh, there's no need to thank me, whatever. Short conversation between them two, nothing major. Okay, then Ishin grabs a quick glance of, the hole on Masaki's chest, on the top of her chest. And then he's like, oh, what's wrong with her? Naturally being concerned, because he cares about her. It's part of the reason why he's here. He's very curious and whatnot. So he's like, oh no. And then Ryuken's reluctant to show him, and then they have a short little talk about what's happened, she's wounded, she's hurt, she needs help. And then the next panel skips. This is the end of the chapter, guys, where you see Ishin, you see Ryuken, holding Masaki, and then in between them, you see out of nowhere, Kisuke Urahara with his famous hat, you know, say that, you know, basically, come with me if you want to live. I'm joking. Says that, you know, basically, bring you two, come with me if you want her to live. And that was the end of the chapter, guys. So, okay, now, let's get into the review side of things, Shin Megami X style. Alright. Now, in my personal opinion, I think this chapter was I say it's a mediocre chapter, and the reasons I say that of this is simply because this chapter, to me, was nothing that I wasn't expecting. The things that happened in this chapter are things that I would have assumed would have happened even if this chapter was never written, even if we skipped a chapter, if that made sense. Like, you know, Ishin comes back to the world of the living, you know, the confrontation with, you know, Masaki and, you know, Ryuken's mother. Yeah, just little things like that. The fact that, you know, like the note saying that, oh, you know, make up some excuse to the captain commander why I've left. Those are things that were somewhat expected to me. Like, regardless of even if we saw the chapter or not, I would have expected to see those things anyway. What I did like about the chapter, though, is that I did like it in terms of, you know, progression in terms of, like, the relationship between Masaki and the Hollow powers. You know, when the Hollow attacked her in the last chapter, it blew up, how that has affected her and left a hollow hole in her chest, and you know how it's all vain, it's basically corrupting her and somewhat killing her, as you can see. It basically, she doesn't do anything, she's going to die. And it's very interesting to see that, because when Ichigo was becoming a Hollow, when he was gaining his Shin Megami powers, they essentially said that, you know, if you become a Hollow, you're essentially dead. Because, you know, like, once you become a Hollow, there's no coming back. So it's interesting to see that on the borderline become a Hollow, you essentially have to go through death. So it's interesting to see that in terms of, you know, that happens each go, he almost went through death, and then Masaki is dying, you know, until she's eventually saved by Urahara. We know she's eventually saved, because otherwise how would we have Ichigo? So, I'm sorry if it's spoilers there, but hey, it's common sense, guys. What else I did like? I did like the art in the chapter this week. I thought, like, the art was very solid. Like, you know, Kubo done a good job in, like, all the drawings, all the shading. Everything seemed spot on. I couldn't really pick a fault with the drawing. Like, me doing drawings and stuff myself. I couldn't really pick a fault with that. So, yeah, well done for that one. My overall rating on the chapter, I would give it a good... I give it a 7 out of 10. So, yeah, not as high as I normally give chapters, because to me, this week's chapter was somewhat expected. It was a much slower pace compared to the previous chapter, 533, Everything But the Rain 6, where we had like a combination of action, and it was slowly cooling down. Compared to last week's chapter, we had a climax that was up here, and then we had like a massive drop. And sometimes these things are cool, you know, because these are the times for when, you know, you can get those joke scenes, you know, the parts that make Bleach funny. And, you know, the parts that, you know, make you memorize Bleach and bits that you enjoy, beside all the epic battles and whatnot. So these things can be, you know, useful, helpful, entertaining, and informative at the same time, because we now understand why it is that, you know, how the Hollow did eventually corrupt Masaki, because, you know, we always knew that it did somehow, because somehow how the Hollow was very similar to, you know, Ichigo's Hollow when he had final form against Ukiura, which I've said before. Yeah, so we all knew that she was corrupted somehow, but it's nice to see how the effect, like, not just like, okay, it's bitten her, bam, it's in her soul now. No. As it sees that it's slowly corrupting her, it tries to take over, as Hollows do. So what Kaname Tozen said in the last chapter was right. It did. He said that, oh, the thing blew itself up. Like, basically, it didn't try to take on like a new host, like try to hollowify somebody else. We can see that, no, this Hollow did. So this Hollow was not a failed experiment, because we can see that it wasn't on the final stage of evolution. It was trying to surpass its limitations by attaching itself to a new host, being a Quincy, a pure-blooded Quincy. So whereas this Hollow was based off the soul of a Shinigami, it now has Hollow powers. It has Shinigami, Hollow powers, and now it's trying to gain Quincy powers. So it's aiming to attain greater power. So therefore, what Kaname said, that it was a failed experiment. Sorry, Kaname, you wrong, dude. Yeah. So boy, I'm trying to think what else to say. I guess that's really my thoughts about the chapter, guys. You know, let me know if I missed anything. Let me know what you guys think. As always, people, comment, rate, subscribe for more Bleach chapter reviews just like this, for more other videos. But anyways, guys, this is me, Shin Megami X. I'm signing out, and as always, people, take care and peace.